The performance monitoring tool was very new, and so many of you might not have that installed and configured. How many of you might install it and configure the performance monitoring tool later on sometime? Okay, great. So what we can do for you is, if you want to take that forward, I have a lot of engineering resources, support resources to help you and guide you through at least setting up and configuring it for your environment. I'm happy to provide that to you all to make sure that you get that up and running. And I have my contact information in here too, so feel free to get in touch with me directly, and I'll put you in touch with the right folks too if I can't help you out myself. To give you a little bit more background for me, I came into marketing in the last few years in my role here at Adobe. My original background actually is in technical support. And I spent almost a decade supporting very large customers for Adobe and other companies that I worked at previous to Adobe. So I'm more familiar with the larger enterprise architectures and troubleshooting that. But I've been around when somebody calls at like midnight on Friday or Saturday. I was that gal that was on the phone with them. For sometimes days at a time, calling in and out of call centers to make sure that they got their issues resolved. So I've seen quite a bit in my days of weird technical issues that happen at unforeseen times. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is, before you start your servers, I want to make sure that you think about security. And I know that many of you didn't think I was going to head in that direction, but I wanted to just get right out of the gate with security. Hopefully all of you know that we just released updaters for 2016 and 2018, right? Yeah? And you all patched your servers already, right? Okay, so we want you to patch as soon as possible. You have to expect security issues. Our team works diligently to issue security fixes and make sure that we put those in your hands. But you're not going to get the security mitigation until you update your servers. There is a security notification service at Adobe, so please sign up. It's at the global level of Adobe, and it's under the product security response team. So we will email you for any security patches that come out with any of our products, actually. So that's a good place to start. Another good place to start is, especially you guys that have 2018, make sure you install the automated lockdown guide. So what we've done is we've taken the lockdown guide for the Cold Fusion platform that used to take all day to install, and we've given you a tool that within a couple of minutes you can install and harden your servers with pretty much probably about a 15-20 minute or 15 to 20 window GUI that allows you to go through and automate that lockdown process. So we try to make it that much easier, not only to lock down your servers, but also make it uniform across all your environments. Of course, apply updates ASAP. The update that we released actually was scheduled out on Patch Tuesday, I believe. But we had to hold it back for some additional testing and things like that, which is why it did not come out on the expected date. It wasn't like a rush release, but we had to, we didn't feel like we wanted to hold it back until the next Patch Tuesday was coming up. So you might have been asking, I know a couple people have already asked me whether or not that was intended. So yes, it was intended. It was intended to release date for some reason that we had internally. So the other thing I wanted to go over is, those of you, many of you probably developers, how many of you are just server administration and doing the installs for the servers and configurations for the servers? Okay, so I figure the rest of you are probably developers mainly, right? So at the developer level, you should be aware of all of the features that we put into the product to help you mitigate against some of these security issues that come up. So one of the things that we included in a couple versions back was the OWASP tools that allow you to basically validate and sanitize user input. And this is where we see a lot of kind of holes that come in. A lot of people are very focused on mitigating against, like the SQL inspection attacks and things like that. But sometimes they miss that user input that came in from a forum or something like that, especially if it's an app that's been around. So utilize the language features and utilize the security analyzer tool that we included in Cold Fusion if you have that available. That was released in 2016. And it allows you to traverse all of your code for security issues. And we're looking for the top 10 security issues that OWASP identifies for the web. So that'll give you a nice rundown report. And even those of you that are server admins, just be aware that that tool is there. You can just run that yourself and then hand it off to the development team too. So they have a report of what needs to be fixed. And then I have my last point is to go to free tag session. He's speaking, I believe, at 1:45, and I want to say this room. And he just does a whole talk on security. So I think that'll help you guys out in the first step. Number 2 is starting with the basics, like basics troubleshooting. And that has to do with making sure that you set up notifications for common issues. Being notified that an issue is happening is probably one of the most important things you could do. You don't want to be the guy that everybody else is trying to get in touch with on a Friday night. You want to be able to be notified right away. And with the new performance monitor tool, of course, we give you the same kind of notifications and then a more robust set of notifications than what you might have experienced before in the server monitor that you previously might be familiar with. So set up these notifications, know that you have them. The new performance monitor, of course, gives you additional statistics in here. So I'll just quickly pop out of here and show you what that looks like. And yes, those of you that know me, I just started wearing glasses, so I have to wear these now. So inside of the performance monitoring tool, what you'll get is in the settings, you'll have an alerts section. So this is the performance monitoring tool. I'm just going to pop in and kind of run through where these things are located right now. And like I said, we'll offer additional assistance when you install and configure this too. But you'll see, hopefully you'll see a little bit better. Let me just increase that for you here. Too much. So these are settings. You'll notice in red here it says node. So this is for my CFusion instance. And these are the alerts that are available. I'm trying to make that bigger one more time. You'll notice in the JVM you have CPU usage. All I need to do is activate that and then pick, JVM CPU usage is more than 90%. I probably want to set that a little bit lower, obviously, because it's those of you that have seen heap memory issues or CPU issues with the JVM, I would recommend you setting that a little bit lower because when you get too high of a state, it's already in a place where you might need to just restart services, or there might not be a whole lot of things that you can do at that point when you set it too high. So it gives you all the options to pick a percentage at all times or percentage on average, that type of thing. And then within there, you've got it's separated out into old gen usage, metaspace usage, and code cache usage, as well as the heap. So the heap is going to be that max heap size that you see in the setting for the jvm.config. And then, of course, on the system side, if you're having, let's say, like a hanging type of thing on your server, if it feels like it's hanging, you probably want to get into setting slow server alerts in your instances and set those pretty low so you can start seeing as it gradually either increases in load or it goes along throughout the day. What are those the slowness in the server, when is that happening? And then you can start benchmarking to the slowness on the server. Go ahead.
Is this just the Enterprise Edition?
No, so performance monitoring tools available in Standard Edition and Enterprise Edition. And it is not licensed separately at all, so you can throw it on dev, you can throw it on production, you can throw it on wherever you want, as long as you own any Standard or Enterprise Edition Cold Fusion license. And then this was all built from the ground up. So this is a brand new tool. It has nothing to do with the old server monitor either. We kind of scrapped that project altogether. So timeouts are here, unresponsive servers. So you can track a lot of different things if you do have some type of hanging issue here. CPU spikes, so I want to be notified if my CPU goes over 75, 80% or something like that. Whatever's not normal for you. And then we separate out system memory too. Now this is something that we never were able to separate out before. Sometimes what you'll see is the system memory will be maxed capacity on a production server. And then your Cold Fusion server will be just like hanging out, you know, not taking that much JVM for the heat. And you've got like a discrepancy between what's happening on the server and the Cold Fusion environment. So we do outline that out for you too, and I think that's really useful when troubleshooting any kind of memory issue on the physical RAM. And then there's a couple others. One of the things, so this is the connector setting as well. One of the things that I did want to point out here is that we added a new feature for posting on Slack. So I don't know if you guys utilize that tool. I know our team does. But Slack is a great way to get a message out to a big group of your developers or a group of people that need to be notified at the same time. Okay, so I went over just where the alerts are for you guys there, and I'll just come back. So the other thing I wanted to point out is load testing. How many of you guys actually load test? I mean, be honest, because I know it doesn't happen very often sometimes. Okay, and I remember, you know, that's one of the things I would say about 50% of the time when I'm talking to somebody, they don't load test. And that's generally has a lot to do sometimes with the timing, you know? So you guys are all overworked and behind projects, right? So you just like push it up. I did some, you know, real small amounts of testing, and then we're going to test maybe with 100 users or something, like a small amount of users first, and then work through it that way. So our team actually uses JMeter ourselves to try to help load test, and that's what I use for some of these, the couple of videos that we created here today. That's been a great tool for us for support. I don't know what other tools that you guys might be using there, but I did want to point out that load testing is a great way to identify not only how much resources you need on a machine, but how much each machine can handle. And that's going to be really big because most of you guys are in virtualized environments, I imagine, right? So somebody's just like, oh, performance is really low, let's just spin up a new server, right? Well, that doesn't really generally fix the problem a lot of times. You're only going to know that when you do load test and you figure out what the natural system behavior is when you're loaded down. And that really has specifically to do with your application. You know, I've seen applications that are just screaming and they're using, you know, all kinds of database interactions and API calls, and they've just modified their code to be very nimble and very efficient, even under load. And then I've seen some apps that really just don't do that much at all, and they're still like really slow as hell, right? So it just depends on how they're built sometimes. And then I won't deny, and I know engineering won't deny either, that sometimes we find bugs. So we will fix those as they come about. If there's a performance issue, obviously that's on our side. But generally speaking, just sanity test and make sure that you're utilizing those tools to actually find out how much load your servers can take. Because then you'll know that much more out of the gate, and when an issue does pop up, then you can be more proactive about how you want to go about trying to solve that. And then I mentioned the security code analyzer as well. When I was in support, my best friend threw the log files. I did not have a performance monitoring tool. I wish I did at that point. I did have the rudimentary server monitor that was built years and years ago at that time that I was doing support for Cold Fusion. But where I went was the log files. And these are my favorite log files right here. So server log is really going to be good for finding just a little quick note and pattern about where the slow pages are. And my favorite thing to do in support was basically to set that value for log slow pages longer than X amount of seconds. Set that really low. I think initially we set it kind of high, in my opinion, at like 30 seconds or something. But I like to see it more like the 7 to 10 second mark myself. I know you get more messages in server dialog, and if you have an application that obviously takes quite a lot longer than 7 to 10 seconds, just be cognizant of that fact that you're going to get a lot of messages in there, or maybe you want to set it higher for those applications that have a longer running request cycle. The application log is where you're going to find, I would say, patterns of like little issues with maybe there's a query tag attribute, or maybe there's like something else in the syntax or in the code itself at the application level. And sometimes that's a file that does get built up a lot, but if you're having a performance issue, I always check to take a look there as well to see if I see a pattern. So sometimes, for example, we would see some kind of syntaxing issue with the query or something like that that wasn't actually the problem, but gave me a little bit of information about what page seemed to be pulled up kind of the most at that time. And you know, you can follow that pattern within that file to say, okay, we're going to look at these 10 different pages and maybe monitor those a little bit more closely. I'm going to show you in here where in Performance Monitoring Tool, you're going to get the additional advantage of more visibility though. Because this is all like manual type of trying to figure out what's going on in these files. Cold Fusion out.log is where you're going to get a lot of the, all of the JVM messages that come out from the stack. So if you have like a compiler issue or some type of syntax issue that happens in the JVM itself, or a heap issue, like a data memory error, it's going to be in the out log. That's in addition to that, the exception log too will have some of the, obviously the exception issues at the Cold Fusion level. So the Cold Fusion out log is where I would go right away if somebody said they had a memory issue. And I would like to read what type of memory issue that is, right? It'll indicate in there typically whether it's max perm size, whether it's you know, an issue with the heap running out of memory or something like that. So those log files can give you some additional information. Of course, in the administrator too, there's a lot of additional settings in logging. Don't just enable all those at the same time, obviously, because we kind of give you some robust exception information in there that you don't want to just have enabled for no reason. But generally speaking, if you have a performance issue, turn it on for now and see what you get, you know, especially during peak times. So memory issues. My number 4 tip and tricks is going to go over the memory issues. Memory issues are, you know, they say like peeling back the layers of the onion, right? I think initially, a lot of time people misidentify an issue with performance for a memory issue, like it could be a CPU issue, and they think it's an issue with memory. Like I said, sometimes you'll get tricked where, you know, the system memory might be running out of resources, and then the Cold Fusion is not, or vice versa. Cold Fusion could be running out of memory because you've only allocated to it maybe 2 gigs or something like that in the heap, and your application's chugging along and storing more things in those variables, and then the JVM memory is actually running out, but your system memory looks fine. So those two operate independently of each other. And you need to know that you allocate memory into the JVM to allow Cold Fusion instances to operate within that space. well, Cold Fusion cannot use any more memory than what you allocate in that JVM space. So if you are, and many times you might have like, 64 gigs of memory on a production server, right? And then you go into the jvm.config file, or maybe you go into the administrator setting and you find that the heap is just allocated too small. It's too small to Cold Fusion and it's running out of memory. So within memory issues, I think the first thing I would do is set up alerts. You don't need to set up all the alerts all the time, but I would set up high-level alerts to give you, I would say, a good amount of room. Like, let's say, for example, you've allocated 2 gigs to the heap. Set the max memory, or the alert for the maximum memory for your application somewhat lower, like maybe 70% of that. That gives you an indication before something majorly goes wrong to at least be notified when the issue is happening. So I've seen both scenarios happen where, and you guys probably saw this too, where you get the graph that goes like this, and it's gradually going up, right? It's like a rocket taking off sideways, or like an airplane taking off. Except in Orange County, they just like take off like this. But the memory actually goes gradually up, over the end of the week or over the weekend, and then all of a sudden it'll hit max capacity. Well, you want to be alerted then at about the 70% level, I would say, at least. But I've also seen it go like this, where it's like that graph of, we're going along fine, and then it just shoots up within like a few hours, and it just hits the max. So I think you want to be a little bit generous with allowing yourself the opportunity to go in there when you see an issue happening, so that you can capture it before the server does hit max capacity and possibly change that out and increase the heap size or increase the perm size or some other area in the jvm.config file for that. Benchmarking is important. This is where I would say know your servers and what they're going to use. So don't just load test your applications for exceptions and problems with security. Load test for what resources are actually being used on that system, right? So you want to know, if I have a 64 gig machine, with a certain amount of CPU, am I comfortable with it being at 90% CPU and 90% memory? Hopefully you're not using that much memory, but you might have like 50 instances of Cold Fusion, all with maybe 2 gigs heap size. So it depends on how you have everything allocated, right? But benchmark in production with like some type of a simulated test that kind of gives you a real world scenario, and know where your servers are under peak load, what they can handle, because then you'll know where your memory needs to be. And you can get these heap statistics over time too. So this is a little video that I have here that shows a condition that is a memory leak within Cold Fusion. This is a C Fusion instance, a single instance of Cold Fusion. And this is kind of a real-time video, basically, that I captured to make sure that I have the right material to show you. Now, what you'll see here is, and it's not moving super fast, this is going to just gradually update itself every couple seconds or so. But basically what I'm doing here is I'm able to take a heap dump. You can see, let me go back here a little bit so I can explain. So you can see in this scenario, I've got not only max CPU in here, but my memory is really high, okay? So as I run it, I can take a heap dump directly from that interface, generates a heap dump for me. What I can do with that heap dump is I can utilize one of the tools to analyze that file for actually where the statistics, oops, sorry. I just going to talk about that a little bit more. The heap dump is going to give you a breakout of where all the memory is on that server instance within the JVM, okay? So all of the different things that are running, whether it's like the thread pool or, all of the threads that are actually running, where they're stored, how much are they storing within that heap. There's a ton of information in that file. If you're not familiar with heat dumps, I would generally say hand it off to our support team. They get them all the time. They can give you a good breakdown of what they see in there. And really all you have to do is say, this is a heat dump I captured within PMT. Can you walk me through that? And we'll talk about what's in there. And I can identify maybe some of the areas in my application that might link into what memory was being maxed out at that time. Okay? So that's a tool that we give you that gives you a real snapshot of everything that's in that heap in different parts of the heap. So next, what I'm going to show you here is this section is the code profiler. Within the application here, the performance monitoring tool, you have the ability to turn on memory profiling. Does anybody remember memory profiling in server monitor? Okay. So memory profiling is very intensive. It's a very intensive process because we're gathering a lot of statistics. It's almost like taking, I would say, a heat dump every few seconds and stuff. So we're capturing all the details of that stack as it pertains to the memory that Cold Fusion is using for each of these threads, right? So within there, when I turn on memory profiling here in that little checkbox, I can turn it on at that server level, either server application or URL, and I can start profiling. The good thing is that if I already know where this is at, I don't have to monitor at that global server level. But basically what that gives me is an output here where I can actually get into the code profiling URL. So, and within that, you'll see a drop down of the slowest 5 executions in that file that I just profiled. And then within there, you can click on the memory section here. And let me just pause it for a second. So you'll notice that because I profiled the memory on this URL, I was able to see, and you guys might not be able to see everything here, but it shows me the scope of the request, as well as all the actual variable names that are storing that memory, what the size of that in bytes is. So you can see most of all these are request scope. These are all local scope function. It's a variable. These are the variable names. So it looks like it's creating new random name variables here on the left. So this is hold on, let me stop here too. So this is from the memory link that I just generated. Within that, you'll also see a code flow. So when you enable profiling, you also get something called a code flow, which gives you all of the statistics of what's being run, where the page location is, and a lot of times a function that's being called. So within here, I have a breakdown of the timing in milliseconds for each execution that was happening within that stack. That even gives you more information to go on and talk with your developers about why maybe their page is running slow or the memory is just increasing dramatically with this page, this particular page, or this particular piece of the application. Okay? Does anybody have any questions about what I just reviewed here with the memory? Sure.
So in the previous version, you weren't supposed to run it on production. Is that the same with this version?
No. The question is about the previous version. I remember we never recommended server monitor be running profiling in production. The reason for that was because it was running in the same JVM space as the server was. So you guys know, so there's a couple people that remember that. When that happens, then you've got like your JVM heap, right? And then you've got your server monitor monitoring the same instance in that same memory space. So ultimately what happens is that when you you have a memory problem at all, your server monitor is completely unavailable and you can't get any information. So in those days, what we used to do is turn on verbose garbage collection, and then we would manually operate that for a little while, maybe like 10, 15 seconds, and then analyze that. But with the performance monitoring tool that we built, luckily the engineering team thought about that ahead of time, and they created a tool that sits outside of the JVM container. It can sit not only outside of the container, but on its own production server. So you basically, what we envision you setting up is a single server with performance monitoring tool on there that can actually visualize your entire environment and monitor that from a remote, from another, physical or virtual server. That way you're not messing with the performance of the other servers, and there's minimal latency too. So we made sure that we focused on not adding additional performance problems when this thing is running. However, with that said, profiling does make takes a lot of intense interaction with the server, so you will realize a performance difference for sure. We do not recommend you just leave this thing on in production, right? Because when you do that, you're going to have a performance impact. So a couple times I've had calls with people where they didn't know that they had profiling enabled, and that was like their best call ever, because you find a button that, it was like a magic button almost. You disable performance profiling or memory profiling, and then magically the problem resolved itself, right? So don't turn profiling on unless you absolutely need it, but definitely use it if you need to find a memory issue. That's one of the tools that you should be using. Like I said, you want to use the more granular level. So if I can monitor just at the URL level, I will do that. I don't want to just blanket enable it in the server, right? So if you can fine tune it a little bit more, get it down, just enable profiling on a URL, or maybe at a smaller application level, and that would be better. And you don't want to have it on too long. Don't leave it on for days and days, right? Because that'll affect it. I'm going to keep going here. Next slide. Okay, my number 5 is talking about CPU spikes. CPU spikes can happen for tons of reasons. And like I said, there's a discrepancy sometimes between the server CPU use and the cold fusion CPU use on the server. So it's the same kind of thing as memory. I've seen, there's a lot of other processes sometimes that a sysadmin might install on a server and you don't know about. So as a developer, that's definitely one place to look, is what is eating up all that CPU. There's a lot of tools and resources at the OS level to help you identify that really quickly. If it happens to be in the cold fusion server, we've got a lot of capabilities here to help you find out what that is and what you want to be looking for. Code profiling is one way to find out too. So that's what I just showed you, is the profiling tool too. That I showed you the memory, but you can also enable a code profiler as well that allows you to get that same code flow stack, right? So you get to know the execution times at different pieces in the stack. And that really helps, especially with performance issues. Where you might have like an endless loop, or maybe there's a file operation that you're looking at that's taking a long time. That will show up in the code profiler for the performance monitoring tool. And then my favorite are the thread dump analysis. So those are the thread dump. Has anybody ever taken a thread dump here? Thread dump is going to give you a snapshot, kind of like the heat dump that I just talked about with the memory, but it'll give you a snapshot of what's running within cold fusion. So you get to see everything. And you're going to be looking at certain threads, so I'll go over that in a minute. But just know that when you take a thread dump, you're going to identify everything within that CFusion JVM instance that is running on that server. So anything spiking your CPU, generate a thread dump. If you don't know how to read it or don't know how to analyze it, or you need some help, send it to our support team and we'll help you out and help walk you through how to read that too. So this is another simulation of what we had with a simulated CPU spike. So within here, actually this looks very similar to the last one. Hold on. in that, hold on, go back here. And then what we happen to be seeing is the memory and the CPU spiking together, but this actually happens to ultimately be a CPU issue. Now, what I did here is I clicked on a piece called Active Monitoring. And this is a nice little utility that allows you to visualize all the threads that are actively running within that Cold Fusion server. So this is gold. I wish I had this in support when people were calling me up. I don't know what's going on with that blue thing. But you can see here, hopefully those of you that are close enough, basically I can see the page number or the page name along with where it's located. So I have a really good idea of what's executing on that server and where the files are. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I got calls where it was a problem with index.cfm, but we were looking at the whole wrong application for it. So after like an hour, we identified that it was not even in that same server. It was actually on, maybe like a NAS drive or something in a different drive. So it's helpful to know not only where it's located, but you get the thread number here. This thread number will also sync up in line with your thread dump that you have. So you can view additional statistics within there too. So those are both go hand in hand. You've also got execution time taken in milliseconds, as well as the amazing ability to kill a thread. Now I know those of you that had server monitor before, we used to have a great utility that allowed you to kill threads, but those threads would still be alive. And so it was kind of like a smoke and mirrors type of thing, I guess I would say, because you thought that the thread was killed, and then yet Cold Fusion was still waiting for that, and it was tied up in the back end. So unfortunately, a lot of times this server restart would have to happen. Here, we can actually kill the thread. So we are killing the thread here. Be careful with the kill button, is what I would recommend. So I'll just let this ride through. One of the other things here you'll see is I click on this piece, and it gives you all the detailed statistics that would allow you to see the stack. So this is the stack view here, and this will come up in your thread dump. So this is basically like a thread dump linking, I would say. The thread dump is going to give you everything all dumped into one file. This kind of gives you what's running currently on the server at that point in time, okay? And within there, I'll just point out, and I know the code is a bit small here, within that stack, those of you that are not familiar with the stack is going to show you that execution of the thread from top to bottom. So you'll be able to identify, let's say there's an index.cfm page that ran. Within there, you'll see index.cfm at the bottom of the stack. So you're going to want to just read up sequentially and see what other pages were being called. Maybe there's a couple CF includes, maybe there was something else running. There could be a loop function or a file IO operation. You will see those, that text inside of those files for the method calls that are being made in there. And those will help you identify what is not only if it's a .cfm or a .cfc that was running, but it'll also help you identify the method calls that are getting either stuck or run all the time when you have a spike. So those patterns are really going to be where you're going to look for what am I seeing running at the time that my spikes are happening, and in that pattern you'll find the answer of where you need to fix your problem. So that's a kill request. So it actually did kill that request. And you'll see actually this is just respawning new ones because it's still running the load test on the back end there. Does anybody have questions about the CPU spike? Okay. Now a couple of other things that I do in here. What I just did is triggered a thread dump from within the performance monitoring tool. Now in the past, if I took a thread dump, I would do it in the command prompt. and then I would get a text file that I would have to figure out how to read somehow really nicely. This way, you get a nice visualization with a pie chart, and we separate the different types of threads here for you. And I'll go over that in just a second, what we want to look for. But if you see all the different colors here, those are different types of threads within the JVM that are actually running on that server. So ThreadDump gives you, like I said, everything all at once. And this visualizer really gives you a good idea of what it looks like without having to try to, has anybody seen the ThreadDump? It's real googly gobble, really. You know, you can't identify anything sometimes. What this gives you is like a nice, let me try to stop it here. Let's see. Oh. Yes. I wanted to stop it in the visualization before I went back. There it goes. There it is right here. So what you'll see on the left here is these are actually grouped by the type of thread they are. Before, these are going to just get dumped in all one next to another, and they're all in different orders, right? Within this tool, it allows you to group them all together, and that's where you're going to want to get the pattern from. So if I had a bunch of runnable threads, I'm going to look at the runnable threads and see if they're all very similar or if they're doing different processing. And you'll notice probably within a few minutes, as you look at those, a pattern of which files are being run at that time. And usually within a few minutes, you can figure out where you can start looking within your application code. But this is a really nice visualizer to help save you a lot of time to try to find out where those patterns are. Now next, I'm going to show you a different piece of this. When we took the thread dump, you also have the ability to go back and look at it later, of course, and then there's an export capability within the system. So if you don't know how to read a thread dump, again, we make it easy for you to just export that and give us the file. And then we can help you walk through which areas we want to see a little bit more of, or where we think that the problem might be. So it's the full diagnosis is what you have at your fingertips here with this tool. Like I said, there's manual ways to do this too if you don't have the performance monitor installed and configured yet. So I can kind of go over those manual steps with you as well if you're looking for that information. Again, this is just the viewer for the thread dump as well as part of this, this video. So that just goes over the viewer of that. Now let's get in just a little bit more detail on these thread dumps so I can give you some tools. A couple of the things that you want to look for. There's two things that when I was talking engineering, this is what they're helping you look for when they're looking at a thread dump. One of them is a runnable thread. That's the one that you're going to want to pay attention to for CPU spikes. Okay, so oftentimes what you'll find out is when your CPU is spiking, there's definitely something running within the application that is pulling all of that CPU power. And like I said, oftentimes it might be a file operation, or maybe an endless loop, or maybe like some kind of application code that's even triggering exceptions quite a bit that can cause a CPU spike as well. So look for the runnable threads. That's going to be really important for your CPU spikes. The waiting and the time waiting is not going to be as interesting typically, but the blocked threads are somewhere that you do want to look if you're having a hang condition. So when you have a hang, sometimes you have like a deadlock occurring or some type of condition where another thread is actually just waiting for its place in line or an open runnable thread. And in that case, you're going to typically find those maybe in the blocked area. The other place that you would find them is also in the runnable area. So let's say I have an operation that goes to database, and I either have a network issue or a database issue. What I would see is probably a bunch of runnable threads actually that are calling maybe some query CFC or something like that. And then you want to basically see that what I would do in that case is I would want to generate a few thread dumps that are about 2 to 5 seconds apart. And the reason why I want to do that is because I want to see a pattern for the code flow. So remember when I said a thread dump is your snapshot of what's exactly happening on that server at that given point in time? If I take a thread dump at 1 second and I take another one at 3 seconds and another one at 5 seconds, I have a 5-second interval to look at of what the difference, that thread number, that thread ID, what it's doing on that third thread dump. If I have seen that it's not moving at all and it's still doing that same operation, I know that that page has been stuck for at least 5 seconds in that state, right? And maybe that's not a lot to you, but that's in addition to, that's part of your execution time, right? You might want to even get a longer snapshot of that. So maybe do 5 thread dumps within, 30 seconds or something like that. You'll still see that flow pattern, okay? So sometimes you'll look at the runnable and just see a pattern for, hey, I noticed that this query is still executing, and hey, they're all stuck at the same place. So that comes out really nicely in the thread dump. So coming to hang conditions. So I just started talking about how to diagnose the hang condition. Basically, that's how we do it. We generate several thread dumps, one after another. You want to see that code flow and the code execution. One thing that I would definitely say is don't make any assumptions about where this will lead you. Because I've gone down, and believe me, you go down a rabbit hole. Most teams within an organization are always saying that it's not their problem. The network team will tell you, well, like, everything's working on my side, and the database team will be like, well, look at what I got. I got a report here that says, my database operations are running like so efficiently. We're at like 99% efficiency right now, and there's 0 problems at all that are being reported. Don't ever take their word for it. Do your own diagnosis, read the thread dumps, and call our team if you want a little bit more help to identify that. A lot of times, our support team will get on the phone with you and talk to the network guy and ask some questions about the database and ask some questions about whoever else is in that operation. A lot of times it's a firewall setting that, guess what, nobody told you they changed, right? And so we can help you diagnose those issues ourselves, but look at what the evidence tells you within the CF server. If the Cold Fusion server shows that it's processing pages really quickly, sometimes what they'll say is, hey, your CF server is totally slow, IAS is getting pinged and it's totally down, right? You're not able to serve requests. Go in there and look at your Cold Fusion statistics. Hit the Cold Fusion server yourself if you can, maybe just by enabling the internal port for a minute or another port so that you can get that. But see if the CF admin comes up on that same internal IP address. You can get those statistics really quickly and then just come back to that webmaster and say, hey, you know what, my CF server seems to be doing fine. You sure it's not another problem within that server environment? Maybe that's taking up other resources from IIS or Apache or something like that. Log pages and admin too. So that's another setting that's completely outside of performance monitoring tool that I use quite a bit. So within the admin, I think I talked about this a little earlier, is just log those pages so you're getting that data. When a problem does happen, it's great to have that data. It's not going to take a lot of additional performance on your server to get those full pages to log. And then of course, within performance monitoring tool, if you've got that set up, we offer tools like archiving. We offer things like being able to go back and see those log files of a month ago and figure out, when those slow pages started happening, what those slowest execution pages were during that time. So if in PMT you have that data, but if you don't, set it in the admin, do it manually, old school style if you need to, until you get PMT up, obviously. So self-healing I wanted to talk about, obviously, because we put something in there for you there. But then within PMT, we offer you an automated utility for performance monitoring that will auto-tune your server. And basically, what that means is we have direct access to certain parameters within your connector itself, and we can on the fly change how many requests are able to be accepted within your server. So that gives you a little bit more wiggle room if you do have a generous spike in load, like maybe your marketing team's got Black Friday specials and didn't accommodate. What you can do is this gradually increases the pool size for you. Within the web server config utility, those settings will give you the high, medium, and low that we suggest. But within performance monitoring, you can adjust those yourself, and we will adjust those automatically if you allow us to. Okay, so that your server can actually accommodate itself and allow for more requests without your interaction at all. How am I doing on time here? We got 15 minutes, I think. So don't be a tool. I don't mean don't be a tool, but I mean really use the right tools. So what we want is just to give you as many tools as you need and as you want to have to help you diagnose these issues yourself, or better yet, maybe even help our team help you diagnose these issues. So either way is fine with us. Just know what tools are out there for you to use. Like I said, I use JMeter myself just to do some quick, dirty load testing, and that works perfectly fine. If you want to use a different tool, that's great. Performance monitoring tool, of course, the Adobe team thinks that's awesome. So we would like you to at least try that out and give us a chance to help you configure that within your applications. But we think it's a great utility, and that's why we're bundling it with the licensing. So as the gentleman asked earlier, it does come with standard and enterprise. We just wanted to put it in your hands so that you have access to it. It's very easy to set up. It takes a couple minutes to set up. If you have a large, complex environment, give us a call. Don't sit there and try to figure it out yourself. We would love to help you. And at the same time, I can find out how you guys are doing with your applications. And you can meet some of the team too on those calls. So just know what tools are out there for you in diagnosing these problems in your own environment. And my top 10 tip is stay calm. I've been yelled at, I've been screamed at. I think in the support team, you really understand the person's worst parts. And we realize that it's kind of a problem that happens when you're really stressed out. And people start lashing at each other. Everybody, like I said, they just tend to automatically play the blame game, right? So just stay calm, and you will definitely come out a hero within a problem that happens, that you just maintain your wits about you, you handle it calmly and professionally, and you know who to call. So I don't care, call me if you want. Alicia@adobe.com is my email address, and we also have our support team's ID up there as well. Feel free to call us. If you don't have support, if you've got a server down, we're not going to leave you hanging in the dust. We will help you out. Don't call for like a P5 and then kind of ask us to pre-support you. But call me up, call the support team, or email us and let us know if you're having an issue. We definitely don't want our customers to be without an avenue for knowledge sharing and identifying these problems, because I think that's like the worst thing that happens within your company when you have a really big performance issue on a production server. So always know that you have an avenue to call us. And I think that was it. That was all I had to say about that. I have some references here. I'd be happy to take some. Oh great, okay, I have 10 minutes. So I'd be happy to take any questions you have. I know I didn't really, give you a full installation, configuration, whatever about the performance monitoring tool, but the goal of this session was to give you some tools that you can use to identify your own performance problems. Any questions? Sure.
We're currently running 2016, so we don't have this yet, but we are running Fusion Reactor. So, in your opinion, I know this is your product, but what is is it worth me upgrading to 2018 if I've got Fusion Reactor? What do you think the pluses and minuses are?
Okay, so the question's about fusion reactor. It was kind of baited. He was like trying to lead me into saying something about our buddies at the fusion reactor at Integral. Number one, what I will say is that I love David Tattersall and his whole team. Integral has been a really strong partner of ours for years now. They're a platinum sponsor here. And I see Dave all the time, I talk to him all the time, and we have a great relationship. Their product is awesome too. We wanted to give you another tool that you can use. I don't have all of the side-by-side differences. Fusion Reactor has a lot more, I would say, around diagnosing Java application issues. Definitely a great tool if you have both Java and Cold Fusion developers, because they can use that tool for either or. The performance monitoring tool was specifically built only for Cold Fusion troubleshooting. So we're going to stop right there. We're not going to diagnose beyond that. So many of you might have, as you extend out Cold Fusion capabilities, you might have some Java in-house. We're just assume that, right? And that's where Cold Fusion performance monitoring tool is going to stop. Although I do have to say that we made, I think, great investment and effort in giving you the right tools and the right hooks within the Cold Fusion runtime for specifically diagnosing Cold Fusion issues. So I would advocate for at least trying out performance monitoring tool when you get an opportunity, and I think you can decide for yourself which one might be better for your organization, or maybe you need both. I'm not really sure what your environment is like, but we really love Integral, so I can't say anything negative about them for sure. Anything else?
My experience is update the performance monitoring tool and Cold servers separately. Is that the case?
Yeah, so the question was regarding updating performance monitoring tool and Cold Fusion separately. Absolutely. So you will have to update those as separate products. They are both separate products. If it's not for the integration, they would be completely separate products altogether. So you do have to operate those independently and update and patch them separately as well.
No, it's another question on the basics of this. We run over half of every of these clouds. Is it really we set this up in one major server, pull all the information from all these servers, and come up with a page into the cloud, the same networking?
Yeah, so the question was regarding larger architectures and how that might look actually in setting that up and figuring it. So what we built is performance monitoring tool is built to be scaled up both horizontally and vertically as a single solution architecture. So that means what we envision, let's say you have a huge environment, you might want to cluster basically performance monitoring tool utilizing a shared data store between all of your performance monitoring tool instances, the same way that you would kind of like scale up Cold Fusion, because it's all Java applications, right? And we envision you would have a single performance, let's say performance monitoring architecture is, I think, the best word that I can come up with for best words. And that performance center would monitor all of your other applications that are out there. Now, I'm not sure how large this is, but we did build this to auto-discover your environment. So once I point this tool at Cold Fusion or CF Fusion instance, we'll pull up all of the other cluster members and nodes that are associated with that. Not only the CF Fusion nodes and instances, but we also pull all of the architecture, including all of the data sources that are tied to and configured with that instance, as well as all of the connector side, so all of your web servers are going to be discovered in that solution as well, and then all of your external services. Anything you have visibility over at the runtime is what we're going to automatically discover in this utility when we're setting that up. And our team can walk you through all of those capabilities as it pertains to your environment. Anything else?
When the next release of Cold Fusion comes out, will the PMT be interoperable with 2018 and that release, or will it come with a new suite of tools?
Yes, so the question was about whether PMT will continue to support the future versions. As you guys saw, she's talking about the future of Cold Fusion in general. That includes a trajectory for updating performance monitoring tool as well. So absolutely, we will update this tool and have it become a part of the cloud operation visibility as well. So it's really exciting because we're gonna make it accessible to view that cloud architecture too, and a little bit more nimble within those cloud infrastructures too. So yes, absolutely, we'll continue supporting this in future versions. Anything else? I think I'm going to have to close it down pretty soon. Take one more question if anybody has. Okay, well, thank you very much